Hello. In this video we're going to be talking about collecting data. Now, in terms of our problem solving methodology, of course we have analysis, design, development and evaluation, and this is done during the analysis stage. One of the key concepts to go in as we're thinking about collecting data is about open and closed questions. An open question, of course, being what did you do yesterday? Or what have you done recently would be an even more open question. And a closed question would be, did you go to the shops yesterday? You're going to get a yes or a no, and they might be more expansive, but it's worth keeping those two things in mind, and there is some room in between them. So why do we collect data? Well, the reason we collect data is that a solution is not always obvious exactly what it should be. We've probably got a problem statement by this point from our stakeholders or from our business owner or the person who's commissioned this software, but we need to know the exact dimensions of what it is that we're doing. So we're going to look at 4 possible ways of collecting data about this. The first is doing a survey. Now, the advantage of surveys is that they can be done very cheaply. Google has their forms, Microsoft has their forms, there's SurveyMonkey and so forth, and you can survey a lot of people very cheaply, and you can do quantitative analysis. So you can say, well, 50% of people surveyed went to the shop yesterday. It doesn't tell us why they went, but it's a very quick way of surveying, hundreds of thousands of people and getting data. There are problems with surveys. People tend to disengage from them and they don't really give you much of an opportunity to delve in. You can have both open and closed questions in your survey, but people won't necessarily be expansive when they're doing the open-ended questions. I know I'm certainly not. I very rarely write very much, and even then I mostly write about things when I'm grumpy about them. So that's a survey. The next method is an interview. Now, interviews come in 2 basic flavours, and we would do these again with stakeholders, people who care or will use this product. We can have an unstructured interview where we're just having a good old chat to them and they see what they say. Now, I actually did a kind of semi-structured interview with my sister yesterday because she's doing a project, and it was good because she got to ask me questions about things that were particular to me. But they wouldn't be questions that she'd ask everybody. So I got some questions because I'm a teacher, and I get other questions because of my software experience and so forth. A more structured interview would be asking everybody the same questions. Now that's good because it means you cover all your bases, but in the extreme of that situation, you're only getting the information that you ask for. So, but there is room to have a semi-structured interview. So it doesn't have to be either fully structured or semi-structured, but fully structured is probably more reliable, and an open or less structured is going to get you a depth of information. Now, the downside to an interview is it's expensive because you've got to take the time to both do the interview and analyse the data that you collected, and it's very hard to graph and do statistics and so forth on. Now, the next one that we're looking at is probably the most expensive, which is observation, but it's also probably the best in terms of how people actually use the system. So you'd actually watch people use your software. I've actually seen this done with sticky notes and stuff if you're just mocking it up, or you might actually have a product that they're using, because people aren't always reliable reporters of what it is that they're doing. Sometimes they want to please you, sometimes they want to annoy you, but if you actually sit and watch them, you'll see the actual flow of what they're doing and what's stopping their work and what works well and so forth. So they're very powerful, really good idea, and not many people mentioned this in the practice exam, to either video it or do a screen capture of them using it so that you can go back at leisure and take the time. But again, very time consuming, but very reliable in terms of observing what the person uses and does. And the final thing is reports from systems. So you could get the system to spit out, how many bills did you issue last year? How many times did it hit the database for transactions? How many customers have you got stored in this? It's a good way of kind of getting the metrics of what it is that you're working on. And as a final note about collecting data, it is good to collect data in more than one way. I wouldn't want to base my entire project on just one survey or indeed with just one interview. I would get as much data as I reasonably could given the sort of scale or the scope of the project. But anyhow, so that gives you an idea of what we're talking about when we are collecting data.